Got very good arms.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and I've talked a little bit on the channel about Iron Man 2020. I remember when the event was announced, I thought there was going to be a new creator, and they were moving on from Dan Slott. So I thought this was good news. When I found out Dan Slott was the architect of the event itself as well, I was confused because there hadn't been much hype or buzz about the series, and I don't know. I guess I feel like my prognostications have come true. It's been pretty much a dud, and here to talk with me about that is my good friend Perch. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for having me on this morning.
We knew that Iron Man 2020 sales were certainly disappointing by Marvel standards. They certainly expected more. The main series has certainly done better than the tie-ins, but the tie-in miniseries, they were debuting down at like 12,000 copies shipped on #1 issues and things like that. And now we have word that we knew that Ironheart 2020 wasn't even going to get distributed in print. It was going to go digital only. And now we know that Forceworks 2020 isn't going to finish up on print. It's finishing on digital. Would you say this is Marvel waving the white flag on Iron Man 2020?
Well, I mean, yeah, it suffered from a bunch of things. I mean, it wasn't the hot storyline they thought. I mean, Iron Man 2020, this entire event and building up to it was part of Dan Slott's pitch to be on the title. I mean, this was kind of the thing he was building up to, and so it didn't land well, like you said. It was sandwiched between Marvel trying to promote a bunch of other things like Empire and even Outlawed seemed to have a little bit more attention from Marvel's marketing. So it just kind of sat there as an event. And like you said, it never created the buzz with the art story. It just never really took off and did anything. And then meanwhile, you had quite a large number of tie-ins. I mean, you had, I think, 2 or 3x the tie-ins as the core title. And you knew just
you had Machine Man, Ironheart, Forceworks. I think is I Wolverine in there as well.
Yep, I Wolverine is in there, and Rescue, and there's just a lot that people it didn't have any interest from the very beginning. I mean, retailers did not order big on it. They didn't want an event with another event right around the corner, and the creative teams were not compelling. So it did not take off, and so it's not a surprise that here we are with titles being just shuttered or going to digital.
It's interesting, Dan Slott is somewhat still treated like a big deal at Marvel. I mean, I will admit, the end of his Spider-Man run, which I think was lackluster, but the very end was good. That Red Goblin story was hot fire, and he really ended it on a high note. It was really confusing that they gave him the Fantastic Four relaunch when Chip Zdarsky probably earned it. Even more confusing when they gave him the Iron Man relaunch when they were bringing Tony Stark back into the Marvel Comics universe. What is it about Dan Slott why do they keep treating him like a big deal? He hasn't had great sales in quite a while, even on Spider-Man.
No, I mean, he's one of their legacy names, I think. What's interesting is that he tends to not do as well when he's on multiple books. And this was true earlier in his career as well. If he can have a main book like he has Spider-Man, and he did a kind of a smaller book, Silver Surfer, even that was struggling to get out on time and kind of meet schedules and everything else. So the fact that they put him on 2 fairly high-profile books through the relaunch, Iron Man and Fantastic Four, right out the gate was that was eyebrow-raising. It didn't make a lot of sense at the time. And, I can't answer that question. I know he's liked within the Marvel offices. I know that he's a guy that they like to depend on. He's part of their stable. And but you're right. I mean, the sales haven't been there. Fantastic Four actually debuted very high because of pent-up demand and then dropped. And Iron Man just never quite caught on. And this Iron Man 2020 event, which is the end of his run. So he does leave the book after the Iron Man 2020 event. It did not build up to what they hoped.
Yeah, so let's talk about his Iron Man. So I went and I read the first 2 issues, and I will be upfront about this. I am not the world's biggest Tony Stark Iron Man fan to begin with. Not my favorite character. In fact, I have never really read a story with Tony Stark Iron Man like as the solo character that I really like. I like him in Avengers and some of the other team books. But just going in and reading it was just weird trying to make like a Tony Stark like family book. he doesn't seem like a character that fits in with that, and they were putting more focus on Jocasta and some of the other characters. It felt like Dan Slott just missed the mark on issue 1.
It did not. It didn't debut well, and it had that same reaction. It was an odd take. I think what people were hoping for, and I think was part of his pitch, was that we were going to get the kind of Playboy Tony Stark kind of behavior that we saw from his Spider-Man run when he briefly made Peter Parker kind of a rich tech mogul. And I think that was kind of the idea of why he would be a good fit for the title. But the supporting cast was large from the beginning. He introduced more faces into it from an already large supporting cast that he was playing with, and then the controller as a villain was decent, but then it was tied up in this VR world. They wanted to go back into Tony's alcoholism. There's a lot of steps there that either felt been there, done that, or just not compelling as a book, as an Iron Man book. And I think Marvel's struggled with Iron Man for a while.
Speaking of been there, done that, now that we are in Iron Man 2020, we have to talk about the payoff of his reintroduction of Tony Stark as Iron Man into the Marvel Universe. Surprise, it wasn't Tony Stark to begin with. He's still dead. He's an AI. Not exactly a new take on the character. It's essentially what we've already been getting, for years now.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Fraction did something similar. Kieran Gillian did something very similar. Even Bendis. They kind of keep hitting these same notes. And I mentioned both the is Tony Stark truly human, or what's going on, and is Tony Stark going to drink again? They seem compelled to always want to go back to those two topics as the only things that define the character. And so what happens is in the movies you have this kind of rich, kind of three-dimensional character played by Robert Downey Jr. that people gravitate to. And in the comics, the character comes off as very two-dimensional, really with one or two traits to their personality, and that's it. And that's been the problem.
Hopefully they get a better writer on it, somebody with a new take on Iron Man, Tony Stark, because you would think with the profile of the character and the amount of people that know who he is, it should be, a big title for Marvel. Of course, Tony Stark never really has been an A-list, top tier selling comic book, really. So maybe he's just not destined for that.
No, you're right. I think he's a tough character to make work. I think he does work better on the big screen than a comic, but definitely the title's seen better days, and we haven't had a really compelling Iron Man in now quite some time. As
I mentioned before, ForceWorks 2020 going to digital. We already knew that Ironheart 2020 and some other comics were already moving to digital, but those aren't the only ones. We have 3 more comics that were announced for that as well. Revenge of the Cosmic Ghost Rider is going to finish up on digital. Scream, Curse of Carnage, which of course rolled out of Absolute Carnage, is finishing up on digital. And Valkyrie, Jane Foster, the big book that Jason Aaron spun out of his War of the Realms title, is also going over to digital. Any of these surprising to you? I know they wanted Valkyrie, Jane Foster to hit.
No, I mean, not now. I mean, I think if you'd have said 6 months ago that Valkyrie would be ending, well, I mean, even then, that run did not feel like it was going to go more than 10 issues at all. Unfortunately, a lot of these new initiatives, a lot of the comics that spin out of these events just don't have staying power. And this isn't, hopefully not any kind of controversial statement. I think you can look all the way back to Fear itself and that event, and just the books that spin out never tend to stick. They're seen as opportunistic. I'm not surprised they're doing this. I suspect there's probably a few more. I mean, they've got just too many books. We said it before, when you're publishing out, 80 some books a month, that's just a lot of books any way you cut it. And, you can't sustain that on the shelf, especially when comic shops aren't open. So they had a bunch of these titles already created, already drawn, already, ready to go to the printers. And they're just saying, well, if we're going to ship this thing out and get, 10,000 copies sold, maybe, it's not worth it. So put it on digital. The shame of it is this isn't a digital strategy for them. This isn't like they're taking some books. If you look at DC, they're aligning some books as digital only, and they're marketing it as such, and they're trying to really build up that they've got a digital presence, and it's an important and digital something to pay attention to. In Marvel's case, it's not like this is being marketed as sending people to digital. It's just, hey, we've got some comics
ground.
Yeah, we don't want to bother printing them, so you can go find them there. But there's no attempt to really build up digital as a platform for them still.
Yeah, it's good that Marvel is actually acknowledging some of their issues and taking steps to address them. So I will at least give them kudos for that. But maybe, you know, Absolute Carnage shouldn't have been a big event that had a bunch of tie-ins and they try to spin out, you know, Ravencroft and the Scream book and all that stuff. Probably should have just ended up being a Venom story arc that would have really pumped up the profile and the sales of Venom, because it really feels like they missed out on they didn't get a whole lot out of it, you know, other than, you know, the Absolute Carnage sales.
Yeah, which were great. I mean, I think you can do these events, but you should just kind of try and measure yourself. You know, do half. You know, get your planning put together, and then just do half the tie-ins you're talking about. Just do 50% of them. Do less. Empire. I mean, I'm sure some of those books are either going to get stealth canceled or they're just going to, you know, they'll make their way to digital as well. There's too many. When you're looking at an event and it's $150+ buy-in for everything, you know, nobody's going to do that. And so it begs the question: why are you putting money at all to some of these tie-ins that are going to sell in the 10 to 15,000 range? There isn't a compelling reason to do that. You're doing it because you're hoping one of them is going to catch, but there's better ways. That's like playing the fool's lottery.
So we do also have some more what I consider good news. Marvel has canceled 53 variant covers that they had solicited. They were part of 3 different initiatives, one of them being Living Vampire, Dark Marvel, and Sneakers. While I think variant covers can be profitable and actually good for shops, you know, in small doses and with certain titles, I'm glad that Marvel's kind of scaling down, you know, the amount of variants. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it is, and so I think it's good that they're backing away from this a little bit. I mean, they had to, again, just kind of like the tie-ins to their events. They had too many. You just had way too many going, and so, you know, stepping off that a little bit and not pushing so many out. I mean, again, I'd love to see the numbers behind it. I don't think anybody was really profiting off of it. I think it had just become a kind of almost a mechanical exercise at Marvel to just try and pump out as many as they could. And I mean, they're paying higher dollar rates to get artists to come in and do covers that nobody really had interest in, or just filling up shelves. And so I think it's good that they're backing away. Unfortunately, in both these cases, I don't see them as really learning their lesson. I see them as maybe them reacting to the current situation. I would be fully of belief that by winter time, they will, like when we get to this absolute null or whatever, we'll be back up to 20, 40 variant covers, and we'll have many tie-ins. I just, because they're taking these things and just kind of canceling them for the moment, it feels more like they're reacting to the time as opposed to actually changing their strategy. But I hope I'm wrong about that.
So you think we're going to still have cat variant covers and the hip hop like variant cover month, you know, in the future?
Oh yeah. I think this is just a temporary pullback with the fact that they just have a higher volume of comics to get out the door than they can deal with right now.
Speaking of reacting to the times, I guess they had a lot of like freebies and giveaways that they had for the convention circuit, and they have nothing to do with them. So they're going to start shipping those out to retailers. I kind of think this is kind of cool. I guess they could have held on to them or used them as some type of promotional opportunities other places, but they're going to be sending out some Absolute Carnage temporary tattoos, a Cards of X bundle of 25. So I'm assuming that's a deck of cards. Conan the Barbarian bookmarks, Fantastic Four party pins, Guardians of the Galaxy B-Mind cards. I'm assuming that's Valentine's Day. Marvel's X bookmarks, Spider-Woman lithographs, Thor trading cards, and a Wolverine Through the Years primer. What do you think? Are you hoping you get your hands on some of these? Do you think your customers are going to like this stuff?
I don't know if they did. Maybe. I mean, it's marketing, so I'm glad they're doing this. I mean, it has nowhere to go. So yeah, thank you for putting that stuff out into the market. It's marketing and promotional material, something that none of the publishers, DC, Marvel, nobody does particularly well. And sometimes they do create things for conventions that they can kind of give away and do, but it feels like an afterthought. It doesn't feel like anybody's really thinking about it. And the place where you get the biggest bang for your buck is arguably not the convention center, but in the shops that are selling your books. Mm-hmm. You know, your stuff out there doing that. So I think that's where, they've got some built up stock, and I hope they're delivering out to market. They absolutely should.
I can tell you right now, when I was in the military and I got deployed, we did get packs of cards with wanted criminals on them. And it would put their faces in your minds because you would use the cards because we played cards when we were deployed. So I think like a pack of cards before a big event like House of X, Powers of 10 would go out. You have the characters, and maybe with the new designs and things, I think that would actually get people interested in being like, what is up with this new version of Wolverine? Or what is up with, are they going back to the old Marvel girl? It would create interest. Just doing a promotional item like that, just thinking about one of the things that they'd shipped out. They could definitely use those things to their advantage and really to help out shops, to be completely honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's classic kind of marketing promo material. You get people excited, give them something, with their bag when they buy. I mean, it helps everybody. It raises awareness for comics people don't necessarily know exist. They absolutely should be doing this. It's solid business. But marketing and promotional items and all that, just in general in comics, has never been a priority. So it's nice that they're getting some second life out of this material that they can't currently use.
Getting some freebies out there. So the last thing I want to talk to is actually what I think is probably the coolest thing, but I thought maybe you would think it was stupid. But Marvel is reprinting the world's smallest comic books. I guess in the 60s or 70s, they had these little mini books. There was a Spider-Man, a Thor, Incredible Hulk, Captain America, Nick Fury, and Amelia the Model. And they're the size of like stamps or something. You would get them in little vending machines, and they're reprinting them in like its own little like little bookcase where you can get them. I think that's awesome. I think it's cool. It's
cool. It's a cool little throwback. I mean, I doubt many people remember those. But it's cool that they're doing it. I think it's something unique. It's something that's marketing. So yeah. I mean, they should be always on the hunt for things like this, especially stuff that builds their history and their continuity and their brand.
Yeah. The only problem is if I get one of these, my son is going to claim it within 15 seconds. As soon as he sees it, oh, that's mine.
Yeah,
he's going to take it probably.
Yeah, kids are going to be all over it. So there will be that battle between collectors and kids.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So that's basically the news, but not all good news. But I am glad that Marvel is recognizing that Iron Man 2020 is absolutely a flop. They need to find a better fit for Iron Man than Dan Slott. Do you think that they've learned their lessons? Or are they going to still try and do these kind of events with no buzz, on the title and just do them anyway because that was the plan?
Yeah, no, I think they'll keep doing it that way. I mean, I don't think if you're Marvel and you're looking at this, you see the current event as definitely a result of the virus and shutdown, and that's hurt the industry and everything else. And your goal should be get back to the way it was as fast as you can. That's how they're thinking. But what hasn't happened, I think DC kind of, it resonated a bit with them. The getting back to the way it was is maybe not the right goal. The right goal would be let's get back to
find out the way it is.
Yeah, let's get to a better business. And you see DC taking steps to do that. Marvel really seems to be more a line of let's get back to normal. And so until they kind of decide that normal isn't good. Now, keep in mind, for them, normal is good. They're the market leader and they're on top. So, it makes sense that they want to get back to normal. But it will take some people in the company going, you know what, we can grow this business. We can make it larger. We can be an even bigger king of the industry, but we're going to have to change. And until that moment happens, I think, they're going to continue to do business as usual, which works for them until it doesn't.
Well, hopefully lenticular covers are the new thing in 2021.
We'll see. Bagged comics.
All right. I appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks a lot.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.